All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plain Sports. Today we're going to talk about some updates after the Caleb Williams news came out. A couple of wide receivers that Oklahoma may be losing, and an update in the recruiting side of OU, and a guy that may be big to add now that Todd Bates has been hired as a defensive line coach. But before we get into that, excuse me, we want to thank you guys for everything, like we have been for every single video. It seems like over the last month, you guys have been helping us grow extremely quick, a lot faster than we could have ever imagined. And we really, really appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so that you know when we do post a new video. Now, let's get into it. So, the first wide receiver, and I think the biggest news of the day, is Mario Williams has officially declared his intention to be in the transfer portal. It's not really a surprise. It's a name that we had discussed in our previous episode after Caleb announced that he was going to entertain the transfer portal. That definitely a guy that could be leaving. Brandon, what do you think?
I mean, it's like we talked about in yesterday's videos or the ones released today. It's no doubt about it. If Caleb Williams is gone, Mario Williams is gone. Mario Williams is going to sit and wait out the Caleb Williams decision, which I think, we're leaning towards. We believe Caleb will be, gone at this point. Sucks is what it is. You have to anticipate, as we talked about last video, you kind of disagreed because we were saying that not one player is bigger than the program, not one coach bigger than the program. And that's still the facts. But at the end of the day, Caleb Williams, him leaving is going to result in multiple departures, especially on that offensive side of the ball. I really think so. And that doesn't mean that OU screwed. That's what we're saying by no one's bigger than the program. We're going to lose kids more than just Mario Williams if Caleb Williams decides to actually leave. But that doesn't mean that they're bigger than the program. I think that's what you got to confuse yesterday.
I still don't think that multiple departures are going to come if Caleb does decide to leave Oklahoma. The Mario one didn't come as that big of a surprise to me either. He said it today, Hayes Fawcett, after he posted the initial graphic and his little speech and all. I guess he spoke with Mario later, and Mario word for word said he wants Caleb to be his quarterback. So it's essentially saying I'm pretty much just going wherever he's going. And it's not like it would be a stretch for him to just assume wherever Caleb goes will also offer him a spot, because he was a top 20 player in his class. He did have a good freshman year. He was on the all freshman team, I believe. So the kid is he's gonna be able to go wherever he wants to go. It's just gonna be where that's gonna end up.
He's special, and it is a tough loss. Barring something crazy with Caleb Williams making the decision to come back. We can segue into something a little later that Brum sent us earlier. I know you probably looked at it, but Greg McElroy today said he predicted Caleb Williams will end up back at OU, and that's despite the Dillon Gabriel news. So I thought that was interesting. That's something we can talk a little bit later. But before we get into that, another receiver made a similar decision to leave Oklahoma. His is more definite with Mike Woods entering for the draft. I wonder if that is also Caleb Williams dependent almost, because I think you can pull his name out of the draft. You absolutely can. I wonder if he's doing the same thing, but he's like, if Caleb Williams is not my quarterback, I'm going to the league. If Caleb Williams is, he might come back. And that's total speculation. I'm not seeing anything that would indicate that. But the only reason I think that is because it was a little bit of a surprise to me when I saw his name when I saw his tweet about him entering the draft. Not that he's not a really good, a really talented player or anything, but I feel like he didn't have the year that we kind of anticipated him having, and I feel like he could have benefited from one more season at Oklahoma, regardless of quarterback. To be honest.
Yeah, he definitely. It didn't make sense to me either. Similar to you, we were texting about it, and I think at this point his best placement would be like third or fourth round pick, and it's because wide receivers, that's usually when they start going with a bulk of them, and especially in the later rounds. But I mean, if he would have had maybe a really good bowl game, I would understand, because then he's got some really good tape. But you've also got to be thinking his teammate at Arkansas, Treylon Burks, I believe he has also declared for the draft. So maybe he's kind of hoping that teams are going to look back at his tape at Arkansas, but maybe he's hoping that they focus on that tape rather than OU tape, because at Oklahoma, he had some good games, but he also had some games where he wasn't
That's
really
what I'm saying. Yeah,
involved.
like
So
there was nothing really stood out.
yeah, but then on the other side, Oklahoma this year really spread the ball out a lot. Like it was pretty even amongst the top three receivers. I don't think we had 1,000 yard receiver this year, so it's I mean the good. I don't. I do not believe he should come back, even if if it is Caleb Williams dependent, because it very may well could be, but I mean, you might as well just start preparing. He may not have the NIL opportunities that other athletes have, and if money is involved in his decision, then maybe the draft is the best way to go because he is a talented guy. He is quick. That's something that we talked about in his Who Dat last year. He's a tall guy that is very explosive off the line. So he could definitely be effective at the next level and be one of those guys that kind of comes out of nowhere for a lot of people because outside of Arkansas and OU, I don't think he really got as much attention at nationally as other receivers have, especially his teammate at Arkansas and Burks. So best of luck to him. I really maybe he does come back. I just don't expect I wouldn't expect him to.
One thing for sure is if Caleb Williams doesn't come back, they're both gone. It's 100. I mean, that's confirmed. So then it's interesting to look at because this team, if you think about it, we've lost about 16 players that were relevant to the roster last year. Like not just play like starters or guys who contributed key minutes. So the area of concern I have is if they both are gone, there's no doubt that there's still going to be talent in that receiver room next year. You can't forget Drake Stoops is still there. Theo Weiss is obviously making the comeback. There's some pretty special kids coming in with Jaden Gibson, Nicholas Anderson. So there's going to be bodies there and really, really talented kids. I think the biggest area of concern comes with these departures specifically is the depth in that receiver room. You got to think Oklahoma's going to look at some portal kids for receiver, maybe some guys from Central Florida. There's a 4-star from Central Florida. I can't remember his name, but he hit the portal today, and I imagine that he's got to be a name that's on OU's radar, especially with Dylan Gabriel. Obviously flipping to Oklahoma.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, I think Mario will be the only one that's like he's definitely going to wherever Caleb's going. I don't think that the rest of the receiver room feels that way. And for everyone else in the receiver room, this opens up a lot of opportunities if Caleb doesn't come back, and that along would take Mario Williams with him because Jalil Farouk was not used until the bowl game, and he had an excellent game. He led the receivers, and that just, I mean, for whatever reason, Lincoln Riley didn't want to use him, and I think Brandon was really high on this kid coming into the season. We just didn't know if he was going to get the opportunities, and when he did in the bowl game, he took advantage of it and he ran with it. And I think that will put him in a position where next year for Lebby, he is going to be a guy that is definitely going to get looks all year with Gabriel, or if Caleb does come back, then Farouk is going to have the opportunity to be a number one receiver in next year's Oklahoma offense, along with Weiss. So I don't think that really anyone should consider leaving after
if
Mario
Caleb
leaves.
comes back, I think Farouk will be the number one receiver. As you mentioned, I'm super high on that kid. If you guys go back and watch the Who Dat, I had a lot of good things to say about Farouk. I think he's freaky. He's special. But what scares me about him is like he was high school teammates with Caleb Williams. Like you're telling me you have zero concern that if Caleb Williams opts out, he's not going to be like, hey, Jalil, let's keep this shit together, man. We've been doing this since high school, and it's going to be hard for a kid like that to say no to that, having spent the last 6 years together playing football on the same team.
Yeah, I don't think he will leave. One, because of the opportunity that Oklahoma presents to him, but two, he's not Mario Williams. Not every school is going to be like, all right, Jalil, like just come over with Mario or with Caleb, because I mean he just isn't as highly regarded. In schools that are probably wrong for that, but that is what it is. And he also again has an excellent opportunity in front of him if Mario comes back or not. I genuinely feel like if Mario does come back, then it could be a really good 1-2 punch with him. Hopefully being more involved in next year's offense, along with Mims and Weiss. The thing is always with Weiss, is he gonna be able to play because of his injury history? But when he's on the field, he's effective, and that I guess that's one thing that Farouk's got to look forward to. And to not sound cynical, is Theo Weiss is unlikely to play a full season, and he could come in and start getting some of those snaps and be a reliable backup. If Mario comes back, and if he doesn't, then he could be a really good number two option behind Mims, assuming that those guys don't leave. And I really don't think outside of Mario Williams, anyone is really like, and I guess you can, you guys are making the argument for Jalil leaving with Caleb. But outside of those two, like Mims didn't come here to play with Caleb Williams. Theo Weiss didn't come here to play with Caleb Williams. Like they've seen the benefit of it, but they also saw the benefit of playing with Spencer Rattler, and they didn't leave because he left. So I mean, there's still a lot to see, but I just don't think that there's a foregone conclusion that if Caleb does decide to go elsewhere, then weapons will start following behind him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like the only thing that, like I said, I'm concerned about is the depth of the receiver room with those two impending departures. At the moment, Mario Williams and Mike Woods will not be Sooners next year, so it's just a little bit of concern for depth. But we'll see what happens in the future with that. Greg McElroy getting on CBS radio today or somewhere, I forget the exact outlet he was on, but saying that predicting Caleb Williams to go back to Oklahoma is interesting. Especially considering the Dillon Gabriel news, where a lot of Sooner fans and a lot of just fans of college football in general kind of thought that was like the final nail in, Caleb Williams and OU being together. But maybe he knows something we don't know. It's interesting. But what do you think of that? Just general him saying that, I guess.
It's something that we talked about in our video from yesterday. Brum brought it up, and we didn't really like cover it very much, but it was brought up about NIL and how much it's involved in this decision to enter the transfer portal. And that's pretty much what McElroy, right? That's his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he said. Like, this must be a move for, to leverage NIL money and to see what's out there for him financially. And, from reading the comment section and looking at Twitter, like, I understand a lot of people really, really hate how NIL is being implemented. And, I don't disagree. Like, it is very poorly governed, and that's not on the schools or the players. Like, it's solely on the NCAA. Until the NCAA decides to do something, then I would 100% do what the players and the schools are doing. Like, take advantage. Until there's something that tells me not to do it, I'm going to do it. And he has a full right to be in the transfer portal, just to listen. And if it works out for him, he wants to leave, that's fine. I believe Dillon Gabriel could be a pretty good quarterback at Oklahoma. And I was watching some more tape and some more highlights of him from his time at UCF. And he kind of reminds me a little bit of Baker Mayfield with the swagger that he plays with. But that could be for a different video. I just think that if he comes back, we'll be in a really good position. And hopefully in a position to compete for the playoffs next year. If he doesn't come back, it'll be more up in the air, but I don't think that this Oklahoma team would be completely out of a conversation for a potential playoff spot next year. There's just a lot more question marks at that point on his return or not.
If Dillon Gabriel can keep up his level of play that he had at Central Florida at Oklahoma, there's no doubt we could be in the conversation for a playoff team and, very prolific offense, but it's to be seen, because he hasn't played at a level that high yet. But as you mentioned yesterday, his talent around him is also going to be elevated too. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this next couple weeks play out, because at this point, I do think that Caleb Williams decision could take upwards to 2 weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks. Pete Thamel tweeted something today that he talked to Carl Williams, who is Caleb's dad, and he said that they're not rushing the decision. They're on a family vacation right now. So I don't think he's going to be making a decision while he's on a vacation with his family. He's probably soaking it all in, enjoying himself, no worries. I think this decision could take upwards to 2 weeks, a week and a half, whatever. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, this is going to be a long saga. And I think almost every pundit and anyone in the national media or just local media has said this is probably the craziest, not just football season, but Oklahoma football season in a very long time with how everything is working out.
There's
Yeah.
it's I mean, you lose 16 or 17 players. We can rattle them off. I mean, there's a bunch of them. Lincoln Riley makes a decision to leave us for USC, that's unprecedented to leave one blue blood for a half-ass blue blood. It's just it's something you don't ever really see. Do you have anything else on the Caleb Williams saga before we move on to the final topic?
No, but to real quickly rattle all the names off so that we can all be kind of freshly updated, because it seems to be like we're losing players left and right. Going to the draft in the next level, we've got Benito, Perion, BA, Isaiah Thomas, Jeremiah Hall, Gabe Burkich, Kennedy Brooks, Marquise Hayes, Tyrese Robinson, DTY, and Mike Woods. In any other year, yes, that's frustrating, but we're like, look at all the talent that Oklahoma's producing. Like, this is the place to be, and I still think that's true. I just think it's being overshadowed by the next part, which is all the guys leaving through the portal, or potentially leaving through the portal, which is Spencer Rattler going to join Beamer at USC on the East Coast. Jaden Hazelwood going to Arkansas, Stogner going to USC as well. Marcellus Crutchfield, wide receiver. Jake Mann, long snapper. Jamal Morris, linebacker. Caleb Williams, and Mario Williams. It's those
It's like
people
18
leaving.
players then. Yeah, I mean that's a huge list of people departing.
And it's the back end of that list that gives Oklahoma fans a reason to be concerned, and people to just in some scenarios be hysterical, and people that are Oklahoma haters are like a guy like Colin Coward to be like, you guys are burning to the ground, and which is not true, because again, that front of the list in any other year, if we weren't losing all these players, all these important players like Rattler and Stogner and Hazelwood and Caleb and or potentially Caleb and Mario, it wouldn't matter. We would just, what would be on social media is OU DNA. Look at what we can do for you if you come to Norman. It's just people are hyper focusing on such a small amount and not really looking at the bulk of the people that are leaving are going to the next level or trying to get to the next level. And I think recruiting, again, Hayes Fawcett, the guy that's doing all the recruiting edits for these guys, has been saying that Oklahoma recruiting is still on an uptick. It's not dead. It hasn't been dead. Lincoln Riley leaving and this stuff that's going on right now is unfortunate. It's something that's frustrating, but we have to see the end result of Caleb's decision. It could still be coming back, and that's not going to destroy the program if he leaves. Like, I think Venables did the right thing with immediately having Levy or whoever reach out to Dylan and say, hey, we, come over, you've got an opportunity here with Caleb leaving or staying. You'll at least compete for a position on our roster.
Yeah, and I think talking about all those departures is a good segue into a possible addition coming to the team. A guy that perhaps Todd Bates is kind of on, because he's a kid from Tulsa. Jackson Player is his name. He's listed at 6 foot 290. Played kind of all over the line. Just looking at his stats here, started off as a defensive tackle, freshman and sophomore year, and then for junior senior year, he's just listed as a defensive lineman. And his last 2 years, he really came on. This last year at Tulsa, he had 15 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. Year before that, 8.5 tackles for loss and 3 sacks. So in the past 2 years alone, what is that? 23.5 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. That's pretty efficient, and a guy who appears to be pretty versatile. With his listing as defensive tackle / defensive line, imagine he can play kind of all over the defensive front. So he came up with his top 5 today. I know Oklahoma State's on it, TCU. I can't remember the last 2, but Arkansas is one of them. Whoever the last one is, I forget it. But making the top 5 for him is pretty big. He's a 3-star coming out of high school originally. Didn't have the greatest of offers. Tulsa, Air Force, UTSA, like Sam Houston State. Schools around that level. But I mean, there's no doubt he's been producing at Tulsa these last 2 seasons. It's hard to argue with 15 tackles for loss in a season and 5 sacks for a guy on the defensive front. I think with all the departures, specifically on the defensive line for us, with Isaiah Thomas, Perion Winfrey both gone, there's no doubt he would be a nice pickup for OU.
Yeah, and the other school that has been listed on his top 5 is Baylor. and he soon after he announced top 5, he received an offer from Oregon. So he he's definitely a guy that's sought after in some circles. Like you said, it's not like he's getting every school in the country to come after him, but having a like that could definitely be beneficial, especially with the losses that we're taking on at the defensive line with our 3 biggest guys, our 3 most impactful guys leaving for the draft. He'll at least get the opportunity to play. The defensive line, I think, that or defensive front, I don't think, you know, it didn't take that big of a hit with those guys leaving. Yeah, like it stinks, but they're moving on to the next level. And I think the guys that are there in their backup roles are going to do just as well, if not better, once they get to the later part of their careers. They're still relatively young, with Clayton being behind Nick Benito. Luckily we still have Redmond on the team. We'll have Kelvin Gilliam. That's a guy that's probably going to get
Isaiah
a lot more.
Coe.
Isaiah Coe is still there. So there's the backfield is there. This guy would be a really good addition for depth moving forward,
Can
because
never
that's
have too
something
many
that,
of them.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
can
mean,
never have too many productive pass rushers or even just run stoppers, and especially a guy who, again, seemingly can play anywhere on that defensive front. Would definitely be a welcome addition. Hopefully, fingers crossed he makes the right decision and makes his way to Norman.
yep,
918 to the 405.
that should be just a natural route. Don't go elsewhere.
Think so.
All right. Well, do you have anything else to add? You want to wrap it up?
I think we can. Yeah, we can probably wrap it up for tonight.
All right. Well, do you want to do your end of video thing before?
Yeah, we can do it. This one's a little tough. Not a whole lot going on with outside of what we talked about. Let's do just Jackson Player, Jaxon Player. That's the defensive lineman that we're talking about here from Tulsa. Just Jackson Player. We'll see if we can get him to OU.
All right, cool. Make sure to comment Jackson Player if you made it this far. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we could not have been growing at the rate that we are without you. Keep doing what you're doing. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Let us know what you think. If you don't already, go to our social media pages, Twitter and Instagram. Links are down below at 2 Point Sports. If you don't like looking at us, or if YouTube may just be inconvenient for you and it's easier just for Spotify, go check us out there at 2 Point Sports. Link is also down in the description. Thank you guys again for watching. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.